a kind, more like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share their interests together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments and the lectures, fanboys, professional artists and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC. In full color, you see me. The Hard NOC Life. Comics, movies, and TV.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. That's right. It's Hard NOC Life, and we're talking about Batman, 1989 style. That's right. It's the 25th anniversary of everyone's favorite Tim Burton Batman movie, and I got a great panel of guests on tonight to talk about all our thoughts and feels about Tim Burton's version of Batman. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I want to go ahead and bring on my panel of esteemed colleagues, and we'll let them talk about where they were when Batmania ran wild across America in the late 80s. So first off, I'm going to bring back one of our frequent contributors to the Nerds of Color. He's been on the show a couple times in the past. You can find him at williambrucewest.com. He knows more about pop culture than anybody else on the planet, and he's a big, huge Batman nerd like me. So welcome to the show, Will.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I said that you were a big Batman nerd. Is that true?
Yes, that is very true.
And you have some affinity for the 1989 Batman movie?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's the one that started it all for, comic book movies, the Batman movie franchise. It just definitely.
So can you recall where you were on June 23rd, 1989?
I cannot, actually. I'm probably one of the few people who did not see the movie in theaters. I actually first saw it when I got it for Christmas on VHS. So when the movie came out, I was in the midst of Batmania, but I guess I wasn't going to theaters then. I was only 8, so... Okay. Yeah.
Next up is another frequent guest on Hard NOC Life. He is another nerd of color and another Batman nerd that I know. I know him because he is my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Raymond Chow.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. So, I remember I don't remember where you were on June 23rd, 1989. Do you remember where you were?
I don't remember what I did last week. No. I don't remember anything that happened prior to 1994, pretty much.
Oh, and I know that 1980, you were 5 years old in 1989, but yeah. you too have I wouldn't say love, but you do have some relationship with the 89 Batman. Am I correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's like your first hit of weed. That's the moment that's the gateway Batman drug for me. It was like, oh, Jack Nicholson is Joker, which even as a 5-year-old I knew was excellent.
Well, I'm sure that you will have plenty to share tonight, so thank you for being on our special Batman. I couldn't do a Batman show without you, actually, so that's the real reason I wanted you on.
Aww.
Thank you.
That's the most brotherly thing he's ever said, and here now it's being recorded for all the world to know.
This is probably true. Our final guest this evening, I'm actually really psyched to have on as well. Speaking of weed, he is a frequent guest on the Fat Man on Batman podcast with Kevin Smith. He is also the senior editor at The Hollywood Reporter. He's a comic book writer for DC, Marvel, IDW. In fact, in August, you'll find his book, Genius, coming out from Top Cow. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hard NOC Life, Mark Bernard.
Thank you very much. That might be the first time I've ever been introduced with weed as a part of the introduction. My parents would be so proud.
Well, I'm sure. And part of that is because one of the reasons I wanted you on the show so badly is that I am a huge fan of your guest spots on Fat Man on Batman, because it's in those episodes of that Kevin Smith podcast that you do commentaries on various Batman movies, and the Tim Burton Batman movie was one of them. So I know you have some thoughts and feels. So do you recall where you were on June 23rd, 1980?
Oh man, yeah, I was. It was the night of my senior prom, and my girlfriend at the time had the chicken pox, so she couldn't come with me. So, but I put the deposit on the limousine, and I'd already rented the tux. So I went for like half an hour, took the pictures.
By
drank
yourself?
the punch. But yeah, by myself. Like it was me. There's 7 people in a limo, 3 dudes who had their dates, and me who was rolling stag. I went to take the pictures, had some punch, then left, took a taxi back to my house, got in my car, and went to the movie theater where everybody was waiting for a midnight showing of Batman.
Nice.
So I remember it very well.
That's awesome. I mean, and prom, Batman. It's awesome.
My that cemented my geek cred for a good long time.
So, if you haven't figured out by now, the reason we've all gathered here tonight is to celebrate and praise and maybe pick on the Batman movie from 1989. I know that one of the things that William had mentioned is that it did set the standard for comic book superhero movies. I mean, you could argue that it still continues to set that. Set the stage for it because it's the first dark and serious take on a superhero, which when you watch it in retrospect, it's not so dark and serious. So Mark, I know that's some of the things that's come up a lot in the commentary that you did with Kevin is that there's a lot of like Dutch angles in it. There's a lot of the mayor and Commissioner Gordon, for God's sake, is not Pat Hingle's no Gary Oldman. So,
no, he wasn't running anywhere to do anything.
Are we mistaken in thinking that Tim Burton's Batman is the dark and serious take on Batman?
I mean, I think, you sort of have to look at it in contrast to what the Batman we had before that was, and it was literally like Adam West and Super Friends were the Batman that existed in the popular culture until Burton's Batman. And so, yeah, I mean, that was all dark and German expressionism, and you got Jack Nicholson and making a real movie. You spent like $100 million on this. Like, it's legit. But looking at it today, especially in the wake of the Christopher Nolan movies, it's like candy-colored, like disposable calorie intake. Just, it's almost a cartoon.
How about you, William? I mean, do you feel like the movie holds up for you at all? I mean, 25 years later.
I think it definitely does. I mean, it's still it's still one of the better big screen representations of Batman that we've had, and I think over time it has come to mean something different for different people, but it holds up now, not as you were saying as a dark movie, but it is a little. It's loved for its campiness, but it doesn't go too far with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny though because like people give like Joel Schumacher so much crap for Batman and rightly so for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, but you can see some of the seeds for the Schumacher Batman stuff in the Burton Batman stuff. Or am I incorrect in that, Raymond?
I mean, I think that like one, it's very much an 80s movie. Like as we look back on it, I think because it was right at the end of it, when it first came out and like when we were first exposed to it, it didn't feel that way. But now that we look back at it, it's like, oh, this is totally an 80s movie, and it's I think the comparisons are apt to like if we think of like an action movie, if we think of like Die Hard and Batman versus action versus like The Expendables and like movies that come out today, it's just that we can do so much more now. We can be so much more violent. You can rip Colossus. You can rip Colossus in half, and people don't care anymore. Like we can just be a lot more violent these days.
Well, and, I mean, it's funny that you bring up the ultra violence in the X-Men movies, but going back to that first Batman movie, I know that, I mean, I was only 12 years old when that movie came out, and it had a serious kind of like it colored my view on life for a very long time. I think I didn't tell my story. I was at wasn't a midnight show, but I think I went to like a 10 o'clock showing in Washington D.C. in a theater in Crystal City because I was staying with my uncle at the time, and there was a theater across the hallway in a mall from his clothing store, and we went to the 10 o'clock show. I was in the very last row, and it just changed my life forever. I watched that film like 20 times in the theater. Got it for my birthday that November, as Will said. That was one of the first movies to come out on VHS like immediately after it finished its run in theaters. And that was revolutionary. And I still have the T-shirt William mentioned Batmania. This T-shirt hanging on the back of my wall here is 25 years old. I would have worn it, but it's so full of holes and it's so rough and torn up that I didn't want to subject you guys to it. But no, that movie was monumental to me, and but now I kind of feel like it's kind of hard for me to sit through it sometimes.
I mean, I think one of the things about it that you look back that you didn't notice when you were a kid is that it's not really a Batman movie. In that Tim Burton doesn't really care about Batman. He cares a lot about the Joker. Like, he's all about the origin of the Joker. I'm going to spend 40 minutes telling you how the Joker and him hanging out with his, Jack Napier and then the mob boss and then his girlfriend. Meanwhile, you get a flashback to Batman's origin. Like, you get it in a montage.
And the Joker's shoehorned into it.
Yeah. Like, it's a movie about the Joker and how he almost defeats Batman. As opposed to, like, I'm going to shoot down your thing with my giant, my pistol will shoot down your Batwing. Why? Because it's the Joker's movie.
I'm glad you brought that up because, I think one of the things that did get criticized for, and more so when Batman Returns came out, is that those movies were not really meant for kids, even though I was a kid when that movie came out and it meant so much to me. Like, also looking back on it, a lot of the things that, like, there's a scene towards the end you were talking about in the climax where Vicky Vale feigns oral sex on the Joker to distract him from Batman.
That's what that is?
Oh, his shoes were dirty.
Guys.
Oh, but she was just tying. She loves tying purple shoes. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't want him to trip. She's a considerate photojournalist on the cover of Time magazine.
Okay, I haven't seen the movie in a while.
What do you think Dancing with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight represents?
Yeah, good lord.
Euphemism.
That's
what the kids call it nowadays.
I know, I've been telling girls, do you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? Now I know why they've been saying no.
Why there's a wave of restraining orders.
But no, it isn't the most appropriate film either, because I think there are a lot of like kind of perverse things, a lot of German expressionism like you mentioned. There's a lot of slow parts too.
But isn't it like perfectly for a 13-year-old? Like it's a perfect 13-year-old movie. I mean, if it's feigning oral sex, which I didn't know that was a bit, but if that's what it is, like, well, that's perfect for a 13-year-old that it's feigning it, right? And I think that's the thing that's why superhero movies have been so successful, is that it can be violent and silly at the same time because you're wearing ears. You're throwing guys out of a church, dropping them 20 floors, but you're wearing ears while you're doing it. So there's an inherent silliness that, like, we can consume it and feel like, oh, this is so dark. Man's wearing ears.
You're stuck on the ears.
Because I was gonna say colorful clothing, but it's Batman, so he doesn't have colorful clothing.
Well, no, and I think Mark really made a point about how, and this has been the case for. I think this is what made Batman Begins so revelatory, is that it was the only Batman movie that really talked about Bruce Wayne, gave a shit about Bruce Wayne, but Michael Keaton, I mean, he's not even top billing in his own movie, right? Like, he gets second billing behind Jack Nicholson. But the beautiful thing about Michael Keaton, though, is that, Batman existed in a pre-internet world. And it's funny that nowadays, like, any kind of announcement for a casting in a Batman movie always elicits, like, scorn and disdain from, like, the fanboy contingent. But we always use Michael Keaton as, like, the exemplar of, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't judge a book by its cover. He's going to be awesome. And then, Michael Keaton begat Heath Ledger and Anne Hathaway and, Ben Affleck maybe. So, but what do you think? How do you think the internet would have reacted had it existed when Michael Keaton was announced to play Batman?
Mr. Mom?
Yeah.
That's how the comic book store reacted to it.
Right. But it took a while, right? Like, it's not like that instantaneous. Like, the internet cracks in half when Ben Affleck was announced to play Batman, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the infection vector of information has gotten so fast that, you can break an internet in half. But in 1988, I guess, when we found out that it was going to be Michael Keaton, like, you didn't see any pictures. You had to wait till, like, he was on the cover of Time magazine. You never saw a trailer. You had to wait until it was a segment on Entertainment Tonight, like the first 20 seconds of Batman. Like the information traveled so slowly, you didn't get a chance to get the groundswell of outrage. It was just isolated people kind of ticked off and then went about their day.
You had to wait till like Starlog magazine showed up on your doorstep, or in
Seriously.
or you could just like type it into a keyboard and have your
Yeah, just have a flood of information coming to you. It's like, what's up? Oh, pictures and telephoto lenses from the set and
exactly. But so a lot of people place Michael Keaton's portrayal of Batman Bruce Wayne on a pedestal. William, where do you fall as like Michael Keaton on your scale of live action Batmans?
I think he's probably the one to navigate both sides the best. Like he's a good Bruce Wayne. I'm kind of in the minority because I feel like Val Kilmer was a great Bruce Wayne. He just wasn't a good Batman, that kind of thing. So maybe I'm the weirdo. But I feel like Michael Keaton, at least, he was a convincing Bruce Wayne, but he was also a convincing Batman, surprisingly enough. And even though there was no internet back then, I wonder if, like I said, I was too young to really think about it, but would it have been that controversial that a funny man was going to be Batman, because all that people really had known up to that point, or most recently, was the Adam West stuff. So if they didn't really know it was going dark. So if you're kind of going campy, laugh a little bit, then Beetlejuice was the right choice,
Yeah, like I think the public at large kind of didn't care. It's just like whatever. I got stuff to do, But like the nerds were upset because they had just come off of Dark Knight Returns, and they just come off of like Son of the Demon, and they just come off of Batman Year One, and they're like, well, where's this guy? Is Michael Keaton the guy to sell me on having traveled the world for like 8 or 9 years and learning the finest secrets of martial arts from the finest masters in all Asia? No, not Michael Keaton. He's not that dude.
Well,
and he's not that dude in the movie either, right?
Yeah, clearly the Tim Burton Batman doesn't know any martial arts.
No,
his one move is
he can barely turn his head.
block, throw. That's his only thing.
Block, and I'll stick my hand out.
Yeah.
And have a thing
run into my fist. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
I will have a jet with missiles on it. That's my kung fu.
Well, and I think it's true. Like Bruce Wayne of the Burton verse didn't travel the world. Like he traveled the world, but he just traveled the world to collect suits to put in his giant armory, right? He didn't travel the world to like actually study anything. It was just, I'm going to put the Wicker Man stuff there and the Japanese samurai stuff there to prove I traveled the world. But I'm not actually going to train under Ra's al Ghul or anything, right?
To bounce off what William was saying earlier, I think that Michael Keaton is a good Batman is a good Bruce Wayne if you think that Bruce Wayne is Michael Keaton, because when he's like the scene, the part where in the armory and he's like, "'Cause I bought it in Japan," like that's such a Michael Keaton delivery and it's excellent, right? And then in Batman Returns, when he's bitching at Alfred about, hey, you let Kim Basinger in the damn Batcave.
Right.
Like, it's such a Michael Keaton delivery, and like that, if you take that as Bruce, then yeah, it's great.
Right, because his Bruce, there are some things about his Bruce Wayne. I loved his portrayal, but I feel like there are some things about his Bruce Wayne that would not necessarily deflect anyone from suspecting he's Batman. Right? Like Christian Bale, at least in Batman Begins, and some of Dark Knight, kind of he's the first one to play up the playboy, like I don't know what I'm doing, kind of airheaded millionaire type.
Right.
Whereas Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne's like broods inside a dark library with giant bat signal. I'm talking about the second movie now, with giant bat signal shining into his room, waiting for someone to call. He's not quite like the millionaire playboy, right?
But he was also the first Bruce Wayne and the only Bruce Wayne who you'd look at and go, that guy's not Batman. Would you look at that guy?
Yeah, that's
true. 180 pounds, soaking wet. He's 5'8". Like, that guy's not fighting crime.
When he does research, he wears glasses. Batman should have perfect vision.
Batman doesn't wear turtlenecks.
Yeah.
One other thing about Michael Keaton. Has anyone else seen the trailer for Birdman?
Ah, yes.
It looks kind of
great. For those of you who are unaware, there's a new movie coming out. But Michael Keaton plays an actor who is famous for his portrayal of the superhero, and
living like, in the shadows of it, and like.
But he's also delusional too, right?
And he can't find any work afterwards, and like, I just want him to say I'm Birdman, and then I'm good. Like, if he says I'm Birdman, then that's gonna be a great movie. Whatever else happens, don't care.
Is he playing the Hanna-Barbera Birdman? Not that it matters, but
oh, I don't know. I wondered that is it the Harvey Birdman? Because then if he becomes a lawyer, that'd be amazing.
Mark, are you familiar? Are you psyched for Birdman at all?
I kind of am, and I was thinking about it the other day. I don't know who else you get to play that guy.
Right.
Like there is no other actor who brings just the right kind of baggage to like.
Right, exactly.
It reminds me a lot of like Burt Reynolds in Boogie Nights. Like that's that guy. Like he's got the years, he's got the age, he's got the miles, and oh man, I'm so intrigued by that movie. I'm prepared to be let down by it because movies
totally. That's what happened. That's how nerds approach all of it.
And because they got a washed-up actor like Michael Keaton to play it. So.
But before we get too far, I mean, we're talking about Batman, so of course we got to stop talking about Batman and talk about the Joker, and Jack Nicholson's iconic portrayal of the Joker. Now, there are people. Are there people out there, and are they on this panel who think Jack Nicholson's Joker is overrated?
He gets a blowjob from Kim Basinger. He's a pretty good Joker.
I mean, it's less that his Joker is overrated. It's that his Joker's out of balance with the rest of the movie. Because Batman is so, kind of sidelined by the movie, the Joker's just kind of swanning around doing whatever he wants to do for like vast stretches of movie. And without a sort of actual hero to oppose the villain, then it's just all villain time. And for me, it just kind of doesn't work. It gets a little exhausting after a while, just watching that. I just wish there were more Batman in a Batman movie. But, I mean, he's good, and he totally deserved the $100 million he made off of that movie. But it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too much.
I never felt like Nicholson's Joker is crazy. Like, I feel like the Joker has to be crazy, and he had like controlled chaos. He had a little too great of a grasp on who he was, and I just didn't feel like he just wasn't crazy enough for me. It wasn't the Joker. They called him the Joker. I feel like Cesar Romero was more of a Joker than Jack Nicholson, because that fool was crazy. And he also had a painted-over mustache. That's a sign of insanity right there. So.
But let me stand on the other side and.
Oh yeah, why don't you defend Jack Nicholson?
Because
William did.
I feel like that part of the issue. Something that I like about '89 Batman is that it is not a Batman origin story. Batman doesn't need an origin story. We all know who Batman is, and I think part of that is why in the script it's so unbalanced. And I think that's a justified criticism that it's unbalanced. But I think that it's because Batman doesn't need an arc. He's Batman. He already knows he's Batman. Like, they try to make the arc of, well, I like Vicky Vale, but he's got to go to work, and that's all the conflict that he needs is, no, I'm gonna stop the Joker because I'm Batman. So he doesn't have that conflict, and so necessarily the Joker kind of has to consume the whole thing, and he has to be winning almost winning until he doesn't, because then that's the only way that there are stakes that matter for Batman's success to matter, because he's not a dynamic character that needs to change. He's Batman, and he's gonna be Batman. He's gonna win by being Batman.
And Raymond has made this point several times in the past on the blog too, that one of his criticisms of the Dark Knight trilogy is that it's 3 movies about why Bruce Wayne doesn't want to be Batman. And one of the refreshing things about the first Batman movie is that that's the only one of the 6 that have come out, or 4 or 5, however many, there's a lot of them, that Bruce Wayne chooses to be Batman over getting the girl, right? Like Raymond referenced that scene where Vicky Vale's in the cave and he says, I'd like to do this, but I got to go to work. And he puts on a suit. And that's the only time that happens in any of the remaining movies. Because in Batman Returns, he's like, Catwoman, you and I could go live off in a fairy tale together. And Batman Forever, he's like, oh, I met Chase Meridian. I'm going to turn off the Batcave.
I'm turning it. I turn off the lights in the cave.
I'm literally turning off the Batcave. Batman and Robin, I'm going to go marry Elle McPherson. And in all three Nolan movies, it's about how Bruce Wayne really doesn't want to be Batman, and he's only Batman for like 6 months anyway. So I think that can be a refreshing aspect of that first Batman movie. It's the only live-action Batman movie where Batman chooses to be Batman. So I do appreciate that.
Raymond has a point in that, like, there's no real conflict, and he even tries to sell us in the movie. He says, my life is complex, but it really isn't. It really isn't. No. Like, he's Bruce and then he's Batman, and that's pretty much it. Like, it's pretty cut and dry. But that line always stood out to me. It's like, it's not really.
No, that's actually one of my favorite scenes, Mark. I know that you and Kevin talked about that scene when you did commentary on the movie, but I kind of like. I mean, I don't think it's very Batman to want to reveal your secret identity to the girl you just met, but there's something endearing about him not being able to spit it out. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the scene that Michael Keaton got in that movie to actually act like an actor. Like, here's where I get to do a thing. You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Right.
What? Nobody asked you to get nuts. Like, we're just having a civil conversation by a fireplace, and you're breaking stuff. Like, simmer down, buddy.
I always felt like that was the audition scene.
Totally.
For the Joker. Michael Keaton would make a great Joker. And then in the novelization of that scene.
That's what I want. Yes, Michael Keaton come back in the next movie as the Joker. That'd be amazing.
That might be pretty
I'll
cool.
allow that. Yeah, I'm cool. With that.
But that scene also in the novelization, and I think in the original script, there was the scene immediately following that and "Want to Get Nuts" scene is Bruce Wayne hopping on a horse and like chasing after the Joker. That I wanted so much to see. I want to see Michael Keaton in just a cowl and his like trench coat. Riding on a horse
and
so I'm assuming everyone here is a Prince fan. Is it blasphemous of me to say that Batman is my favorite Prince album?
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite Prince album. To be honest.
People, and I don't know, people give a lot of crap to Batman for featuring so many Prince songs, but to me, that's one of the things that makes Batman awesome. Do you agree?
I'm trying to imagine the conversations that took place in Warner Brothers where they're like, so Prince is going to do the soundtrack, yeah? Yeah. Are there going to be songs about Batman? No, not really. What are they going to be about? He's playing his Gemini character who's half Batman, half Joker, and he dances a lot. All right. And then there's a song about money and maybe orange juice. I don't know. Whatever Prince wants to do, it's fine. Excellent. Stamp. Go.
No, but one of the offshoots of that is one of the better Prince EPs, and it's the Scandalous Sex Suite. If anyone, it was only released in Japan or something, but basically it took Scandalous, which was the love theme that he lifted from Danny Elfman actually, and made his own song out of it. And he did like an 8-song EP. It was like a concept EP that basically took that one song and stretched it out over. But it's pretty brilliant. So, as mentioned, one of the things actually that I'm most psyched about recently, Prince came back to Warner Brothers. He signed a deal with Warner Brothers to remaster his entire catalog, and one of the things I'm hoping is a 25th anniversary edition of the Batman soundtrack, because that thing is awesome. I have to admit, Party Man, Trust, Bat Dance, those are songs that were on constant rotation on my Walkman 25 years ago. But no, I mean, speaking of music of the film, the other thing I think that the Batman film made it instantly iconic and also kind of influenced the remaining superhero movies that come out after it was that score. The Danny Elfman score is probably the second most iconic superhero score next to John Williams' Superman, and I would argue it's probably more iconic than John Williams' Superman, but that might be hard to argue. But what is your opinion, William, about the Danny Elfman score?
Oh, it's amazing. And I mean, like you said, it did color what was to come later on. I mean, it carries over into the animated series. Elfman and Burton had a really great working relationship. And I had read somewhere recently that they won't work together anymore, and I don't really know what's behind that or if that was like a joke, but it's really sad because a lot of what they did was just incredible, and it all goes back to that score for me.
What did you think of the Hans Zimmer attempt at the Batman score for the Dark Knight trilogy? And was it unfair to compare Zimmer to Elfman in terms of creating a score for Batman?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elfman definitely followed in sort of the John Williams mode of the kind of like the big brassy, like we're gonna have themes, we're gonna do things, and Hans Zimmer was like, I want to pound stuff. I want to pound like big drums and metal pipes, and I'm just gonna drive you into the ground. I'm gonna pummel you into subservience with my score. So they were totally going for different things, and I mean, but I don't think anybody's putting on the Hans Zimmer, and getting like speeding tickets driving to it. Anyway, I got speeding tickets driving to the Elfman. Like it doesn't move you in the way you want that score to move you.
I feel like also in terms of comic book films, there hasn't been a score as iconic as the first two Batman movie scores, Raymond. I mean, there's been literally 5,000 comic book movies since 1992, which is when Returns came out, and none of their scores are memorable.
Yeah, like X-Men. I don't know. I don't remember what the music is for X-Men, for any of them.
Right.
Spider-Man.
I mean, Danny Elfman did the score for Spider-Man. Even Danny Elfman couldn't tap his own music.
It's like, and that's the thing is, I don't, it's such an iconic, that song, and especially because in '92 or with animated series, for me, I'm just hearing it every day. But like, I can't escape that song in my head. Like, it's always going to be part of when I think of Batman, or whenever I'm reading a comic and Batman breaks through a window, it's like, oh yeah, the Danny Elfman song is kind of playing in the back of my head because it's great. It's the perfect song for that moment every time. Batman's here, game over, y'all gonna lose now.
Well, I was just saying, even Spider-Man, it felt like they were scraps left over from Batman. Like, if you listen to that score, it's kind of like, whenever you hear a Train song, and they just really want to start playing Drops of Jupiter again. Like, it was that sort of thing. Like he's supposedly for Spider-Man, but it's really drifting back to Gotham.
Which doesn't fit, like, the Spider-Man oeuvre whatsoever, right? Like,
No, not at all.
Like, gothic and moody does not fit Spider-Man. Dubstep and electronic EDM music apparently is what fits Spider-Man. If anyone's seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so at least there hasn't been a dubstep Batman soundtrack. At least not yet. Who knows what Dawn of Justice brings? I wanted to touch on a couple other things about the first Batman movie, and that's just. William referenced it earlier, and it was the mania around it when that movie came out. And like, for me, Batman, the '89 version, was more than just a film. It was an experience. It was merchandising. It was like I pointed to that Holy shirt, and Holy in more ways than one, hanging on my wall. Like that's what I didn't. I wasn't old enough to experience in 1966. And I remember, being a 12-year-old kid walking down the street, like everyone rocking the bat symbol, people breaking, subway signs to steal the Batman poster, stuff like that. Like, it was everywhere. People were cutting the Bat logo into their hair. Like, Mark, what is your recollection of that? Just, you were in high school at the time, that just period. Because nowadays you walk down the street, everyone's got like Under Armour Batman t-shirts. But like in 1988, 89, to see people wearing Batman. Literally everyone was wearing. I mean, Jordan Knight of the New Kids on the Block was wearing a freaking Batman T-shirt. You know what I'm saying?
It was like the first time I can remember where being a nerd was not something to look down on. Like, it was the first time when, if somebody saw you wearing a Batman T-shirt, a girl would say, "Oh, that's kind of cool." It's like, "Oh, where'd you get that thing?" Never happened before. Never in a million years did it ever happen before. So to like sort of be welcomed by the masses at large was a completely new experience. and then it went away almost immediately after, and the beatings can begin. But yeah, it was just the magical halcyon days where anything was possible.
And it's almost gotten, I mean, but we're back to that point in a way. Like, I mean, comic book films have so permeated the popular culture that it's not rare, like, to see dude bros wearing, superhero T-shirts.
It was just amazing because it was everywhere, and like you were saying, people were getting it like shaved into the back of their heads, and there was a lot of like bootleg shirts, like you'd see like Black Batman and stuff like that. Like I was knee deep in like Batman 66 at the time because it was like in heavy syndication rotation. So to see just like everybody else kind of come into the forefront with their love of Batman too, it didn't matter that it was like a different Batman to me, as long as like it's kind of like Christianity, as long as it was a denomination, it was the same thing,
Right.
So even if we were movie fans or 66 fans, it was just awesome to see Batman in that kind of like national spotlight.
So, and Raymond, you are a purist when it comes to your Batman fandom, and we've had many conversations over the years about, like, you've accused me of not of being just about like the movie versions, which is probably true. I mean, that's my
your love of Batman is not pure enough. No,
it's not pure enough for you.
It's not fanatical enough.
So, like, you've kind of become disillusioned with just anticipating any sort of Batman like ephemera that's not necessarily and even the comics. You're not a big fan of the comics anymore, are you? Are you still reading the Snyder comics?
Yeah, well, I mean, I read it when I can. I think that what it is that there are always things about the Batman movies. Like, we were joking about the violence of Days of Future Past, but like, that's really a problem in '89 Batman, is that he kills people all the time in '89 Batman, and that's kind of problematic when we're trying to think of that archetypal Batman figure that 66 Batman doesn't kill anybody, animated series Batman doesn't kill anybody. They're a little bit sillier, or they're a little bit less quote unquote serious, but they are truer to the spirit of what I think Batman is and should be.
Is he killing them, or is he letting them die?
Oh, Michael Keaton was gleefully killing people.
Yeah.
In Batman Returns, he literally tucks an explosive into some dude's belt and just watches him explode.
He blows up Axe's chemicals with bombs. Like, he drops up the dude standing there.
No one was there.
The dude, they're all the dudes that are around the Batmobile. It drops a little bomb, and they look at the bomb, and then the factory blows up.
And the worst part is Batman wasn't even in the car. He was like Obama with a drone. He was like, Obama, I was doing drones 25 years before you were even a blip on the radar, dude. Batman was a brutal.
Yeah.
He was a stone cold murderer in 1989.
And so, like, for me to watch, and that's something that when I watch '89 Batman, that's kind of like, oh man, those people are definitely dead.
Well, let's end with this. I know that we've been talking about Burton's Batman for the last hour or so, and we are on the cusp of, and we didn't really talk too much about the Dark Knight trilogy, but we've completed that series of films. We are on the cusp of yet another interpretation of Batman with Ben Affleck's take in Dawn of Justice, and there was rumors, I think just came out today, saying that there may be a solo Batman movie in like 2019 or something. One, has the perfect Batman film been made? And if not, do you think you'll ever see, quote unquote, the perfect Batman film be made in your lifetime? And we'll start with Mark.
Yeah, I don't think, it's one of those, like, your reach should exceed your grasp, or what's a heaven for. Like, I don't think we've seen the perfect one. We've gotten a little close. The Dark Knight is a pretty solid movie. And I think, more so because Heath Ledger is so great as the Joker, less so than because Christian Bale is so great as Batman.
Mm.
I don't know what Ben Affleck's going to do. There's going to be another dude after Ben Affleck, just there'll be another dude after that. Like, one would hope that at some point somebody will just hit all of the cylinders at the right time. But Haven't seen it yet, but we live in hope.
Yeah, that's what sets you apart from the rest of us. The rest of us cynical bastards. What about you, William? Do you think the perfect Batman movie's been made yet?
Yep, and it was called Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh,
Nice.
It had everything. It was perfect, and it had Kevin Conroy.
It had everything. It had everything but an audience, because no one saw that.
Everybody found it on video.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That was
No,
a good,
I mean,
good answer,
like,
though.
it really did hit a lot of the notes we're looking for, and unfortunately, it's animated, so people don't take it seriously. But as like a feature-length Batman story, that I feel like it did it the best.
But I need to come back to that one. Raymond, I know your answer to this, so I'm not going to ask you if you think the perfect Batman movie is made. What I'm gonna flip it a little bit and say, what would you need to see to have the perfect Batman movie for you?
I think one key thing, and we've said this already, we don't need any more origin stories. I think that's a well that's been tapped pretty dry at this point, and it wasn't necessary in the first place, because everyone knows who. You don't need an origin story for James Bond, and and Batman is a perennial character in that same way. That look, he's a rich guy whose parents were killed, so he chose to fight crime for the rest of his life, and that's all you need to know to get the story going on his end. So I think that going forward, we don't need any more origin stories, and I'm assuming that in the Dawn of Justice, since he's a secondary character, that this means that, like, are they going to shoehorn in an origin story for Batman in this movie? Like,
Well, and I think the thing about Ben Affleck is that he's supposed to be an established Batman.
right, and that's what. Right, so that's what I'm saying. Is like we can work under the assumption that people are smart enough and aware enough that he's Batman because he's Batman. Like you don't need to explain that. So going forward, I think that's a key part. I think another thing is the active pursuit of not killing people and not letting them die. That's one of the things that in my pieces that I vehemently disagree with. Batman does have a moral obligation to save even Ra's al Ghul.
That's right. I think we don't need any more origin stories. I think we need to adhere to like the moral tenets of Batman. And the other thing that I would add to everyone's points, and because I want to wrap up soon, is that I'm a little tired of like the whole city being at stake. And I want to see a Batman movie where the stakes are a little bit smaller. And I want a more intimate Batman story, I want one to see Batman be a detective. So like I would like to see a movie like Seven or The Zodiac, but with a Batman in it. You know what I mean? Like where he's like hunting down a serial killer or something like that. And it's not, or he's trying to protect a family. It's not like the whole city is about to explode and Batman needs to send a nuclear bomb 5 miles away so it doesn't explode. I don't know what I don't know what the point of The Dark Knight Rises and having the nuclear bomb go off over the bay. But I'm kind of tired of like the stakes being so high in a Batman. I want smaller stakes, but like a lot, but big stakes for Batman as a character. So that's my 2 cents there. Anyway, we're going to have to wrap it up there. I want to thank my guest, Mark. You want to say a few words about your upcoming book in August, Genius?
Yeah, no, we're really excited about it. It's been a long time coming. It's coming out weekly from Top Cow. It's a book about a young teenager who was born in South Central LA, who happens to be the greatest military mind of her generation, who decides to secede a couple square blocks from the Union and hold it by force. And the various ways in which she learns that that's not actually possible. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait till you guys can see it.
Well, I am also very excited about, and not too many mainstream comic books have lead characters of color who are women, so that's definitely one of the things that I'm psyched for.
Yeah,
so.
We definitely tried to do a thing that nobody wanted to publish. It was
so big
hard
as a
enough
Top
to
Cow,
press.
right?
Yeah, like we took it down to a bunch of people, and they were like, yeah, black leads don't sell, female leads don't sell, so a black female lead is, yeah, thanks for coming. The Top Cow, they roll the dice.
So yeah, we are definitely looking forward to that. That comes out August 6th. Is that
Uh,
something?
whatever the first Wednesday is in August, and then all 5 Wednesdays in the month.
So we'll look out for that. So thank you for being on the show, Mark. I appreciate
No,
it.
you got it. This was fun.
I also want to thank Raymond. We should be looking forward to some of your writings on Batman on the Nerds of Color.
Yeah, sure, Bob. Probably. I know what you're doing is you're making it so I'm saying it. Oh, look, I'm talking about my thing that I'm writing, so that I'll write it. But I mean, sure, you can think that this will work. I don't care.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the show, Raymond. I appreciate it. William, you want to plug West Week Ever on WilliamBruceWest.com?
Sure. It's a feature I write every Friday, and it's basically best week ever with my own spin. So West Week Ever. Check it out. WilliamBruceWest.com every Friday at around 11 a.m. or so.
So and thanks to everyone for watching and reminiscing about Batman. It celebrates its 25th anniversary this week. Also, it's the 75th anniversary of Batman as a character. It's the 100th anniversary of the birth of Bill Finger, and so we are all Batmaned out this week. So thank you for watching Hard NOC Life. We'll see you next time.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard NOC Life, but not the chica kind. More like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share their interests together with a similar kind. When they said Don Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments, and the lectures. Fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC.